talk about a book that was recommended to me by a friend, and I am so glad that she recommended this book. I had never heard of it, and it was a really nice read. And that book is Serena by Ron Rash. Now, as you can see, obviously it was popular enough to warrant a movie with the Jennifer Lawrence and Bradley Cooper combo that we all love so dearly. But I had never heard of it, and I'm not sure why. Probably because I don't read that much contemporary stuff. But anyway, that's a different discussion altogether. Let's just stick on track. So the book is about a couple, George and Serena Pemberton, who are the part owner of a timber company in North Carolina, and the novel opens in 1929. Serena is newly wed to George, and she arrives at the camp in the beginning of the novel. And George was already part owner of this timber company, and he met Serena in Boston during a visit there. And her parents owned a timber company in Colorado, so she has history, and she's very ambitious. As soon as they get to the timber camp in the beginning of the novel, we're introduced to Rachel Harmon, who is a girl that George slept with and who he fathered a child on before he married Serena. However, now that he's married to Serena, he no longer cares at all about this girl, not that he ever really did to begin with. And the opening novel opens with him fighting the girl's father, like knife fight. Pretty brutal. So from the very beginning we see that life in the hills of North Carolina in this novel is kill or be killed, dog eat dog, kind of a harsh, brutal reality. Those are most of the major characters. There are other major characters like the different business partners that George and Serena have. Different mining crews. They don't really do much, but they come in and out of the story. Another major character is Galloway, is his last name. I forget what his first name is, if they ever even refer to him by it. But he is a former, I think he's a murderer, but I don't know if he actually got convicted or if that's just the story. But he's a pretty brutal dude. And through some turns of events, he ends up being Serena's right-hand man. And then there's also the sheriff, Sheriff McDowell, who's the only lawman or person in a position of power that the Pembertons have not bought off by the end of the novel, and he ends up being one of their major adversaries. So anyway, over the course of the novel, you follow the story of the Pembertons' rise to power and the decisions they make and how they have to live with those decisions and the consequences. Some of the things I really enjoyed about this novel were, one, even that it was written in a very easy to read, exciting way, contemporary language, and the language to fit the place. You had dialect a little bit, but not enough to make it, too inaccessible to people not from North Carolina at that time in that place, but enough to make you feel like you were kind of in that world and that you could see what was happening. The other thing I liked, that even though it was a very contemporary story, it had elements that were very classical, like a Greek tragedy. You have this rise to power and these fatal flaws, and you know what's coming, but you see it all play out on this grand tragic stage, which I really like. It felt like you were watching mythical figures, not just people, because they were larger than just people. Their personalities and just the way they live life, especially Serena, and even amongst the men in the story, she stands out as being like mythical, like too big for life, like just intense. And I found myself really drawn to that character, even though she's a terrible person, and really kind of intrigued and respecting her, even though the stuff she does is just terrible. Another thing that I liked, another theme throughout, was that um, beautiful things are often the most dangerous and cause us the most harm. And they talk about there's an eagle that Serena brings in from Mongolia, a special eagle that she trains to kill rattlesnakes. And it's this gorgeous, majestic creature, but is extremely deadly. There's a panther that they talk about, they reference quite a few times. And there's Serena herself, which she's a beautiful lady and has this aura of like power and stuff, but she's also the most deadly thing in the book. Um, you don't want to get on her bad side. I felt like there was also, although I couldn't pinpoint exactly where, I felt that there were ties to like Old Testament kind of like big, powerful, like you were being asked to do something, and these weren't like normal everyday circumstances. This was for all the marbles, for the big meaning and big consequence. Um, it was surprising to me that I had never heard of this book and that I had never heard about the movie until it was recommended to me. It seems like the kind of thing that would be very popular, and it might have been. I don't know where I was. It's fairly recent, I know. Let's see. Yeah, dead air is always the best. But look, 2008. So I'm not sure. Um, it also felt really well researched. Now, I don't know, not being a timber expert myself, how good his research is, but it felt like the details were there to make me believe that all this stuff was plausible. So in the end, at the end of the day, I wasn't sure what I was getting into um, when I started, but it is an awesome book, really fun to read, really quick. You really get involved in what's going to happen, how it plays out. There are memorable characters who are very interesting. Even the bad characters are really interesting and dynamic. Even more so than most of the good characters, to be honest. And not only is it fun and exciting and interesting to read, but there are tons of great metaphors and beautiful language and just this great, grand, like operatic story being told. So I would highly suggest, to go out, find yourself a copy, read it, great summer read, enjoy, and as always, have a good life, happy reading.